The other day, I was talking to this old friend of mine. She's actually heading uh, the HR department of one of the reputed IT company. And we were talking about the work scenario post COVID and the kind of employment generation that the organization is working on, and its employee status and so on. But the thing is, the most notable question which came out of this conversation was she was utterly frustrated, and she was saying that uh, that these days the kind of students that we receive in name of management trainees and management students is completely frustrating. Now, this friend of mine has been the HR professional for almost 20 to 21 years, and coming from him, and she's very she's I have always seen it, and found her as somebody who is always at the best in keeping the cool, and maintaining that balance in between the stress of the work and the demand of the work and the deliverables. Now, coming from her, it was pretty shocking. I mean, it was like I literally had to ask, like, what's not going right? Okay, like what's happening? So the thing is, she's saying that when we go through this interviewing process, it appears that the process itself is a pain. And when I asked her to elaborate, and she said, like, you see, Sanjay, the thing is, uh, the students are absolutely okay when they are asked theories and definitions and what they have learned so far in terms from their curriculum and so on. But the moment you ask about the practicality, the scenario-based question, they are failing miserably. I mean, it's like the kind of answers that they give does not really suit their background as a management professional. See, the problem is what they are reading is a curriculum, a couple of books, but the real life scenario is completely different. You and I know. I mean, like who have been working in the professional field for quite some time, we all know the kind of demand, the kind of challenges which arrives in front of a professional when they are working on the real life scenario is completely different. Things go haywire, things goes unexpectedly wrong, things goes completely takes a u-turn, and the worst part is when you have already thought, like, you have already thought and planned uh, which can not but deliver 100% of the best of everything. You find one simple point which jeopardizes all plans and production and operations, and the whole thing takes a u-turn. Like, even if I take instance the present scenario, see, the business management professionals, the gurus, and everybody had a great elaborate plan about revenue maximization, about the business expansion, about the collaboration that they can look forward to in this financial year. But what happened was, with the arrival of COVID 19, the whole thing got jeopardized. I mean, nobody could anticipate this coming, nobody saw this coming, and nobody could even take a preventive measures. Like, a majority of the world's organizations are facing this problem, handling their cost and handling everything, is because they had a BCP. It's not like they did not have a business continuity plan, but while they were considering business continuity plan in terms of natural calamities like rain or storm or earthquake, nobody even anticipated that a virus could arrive on the face of Earth, almost stopping the whole world from functioning normally. Nobody had that idea. So the thing is, we all know what happened next. The result was uh, the disease or this pandemic spread across. The virus did spread across in a geometric progression. I mean, like, if we consider India as the country, uh, I remember initially in the month of March, the first month the reported cases were only 10 to 15 when was considered for the people who were coming from abroad, and they were the majorly the people, and then it did spread across. And now yesterday I heard that number of affected in India is 7 lakhs, and India is in the third position in terms of how the COVID-19 has impacted disease, how it has um, really affected the people, the number of people affected, and so on. Now, what is happening is, see, nobody was aware of it. Nobody knew the prevention. Nobody knew how to take care of it in such a scenario wherein even you have to maintain something called the social distancing. Nobody heard about this social distancing because in India we are more about in handshaking and pat in the back, and it's more more human contact. uh, and so what happened was it did spread across. The organizations had to shut down, literally shut down. I mean, employees had to work from home, and even now, only 10% or 20%, 25% is going to work, and that too on alternate days. And majority of the people are working from home. Now you need to understand, working from home is possible with the IT guys, is possible with top brass management professionals who can just pass on the instructions and so on. But the hardcore action that happens on the floor of the production of the man management and everything, that cannot be done from work from home, right? I mean, no organization or in any country somebody has 100% automated process wherein human contact or human presence is not required. So see, the thing is, even even the best of best professional from the best of the best B school couldn't anticipate what to do in terms of a pandemic case like COVID-19. So while they were busy preparing the presentation, the chart, the market penetration model, the pyramid model, and the revenue maximization model, something arrived on the face of earth and everything was jeopardized. So the thing is, things goes wrong, right? But the main part is what we find in I have also seen it in during my work tenure, that engineers or professionals arriving from the best of the best technical or management schools, they are technically absolutely sound. I mean, like whenever you ask them a technically perfect question, they give you the perfect answer. But the main problem is, like which I was more fond of, is, you see, when I welcome you into my team, you will be handling escalations on behalf of the clients. Now, you have heard about or you have learned about how to handle a kind of situation technically, but where did you even learn how to handle an irate customer? You never know. A irate customer, not being handled properly, 100% probability is you losing the business, because the customers, when they're irate, the way they behave, the way they sometimes get abusive, sometimes they are angry. See, the main thing is, always I have mentioned, see, the basically thing is, irrespective of the level of irritation that has happened for the customer, the only basic foundation or the basic question that this client has in mind is, they want their problem to be heard. Many a times I have found that as an escalation manager, when I was working with a couple of technical companies, I have seen that a simple escalation has got escalated to the level of the director or the board, just because some basic things were not taken care of, just because while the customer was speaking, the technician tried to provide the solution, and the technical questions they asked made this customer more irate. Like, they wrote back to us like, your technicians do not have time to listen to what problem I have. they are more busy in shrugging us off. See, the basic thing is on the part of the technician, he or she was not actually trying to shrug off that customer. They were trying their best to provide a solution to the customer as soon as possible, because they believe solving that problem might solve the escalation. But the problem was not that. The problem was the customer wanted the problem to be heard. See, when one escalation team, is handling one situation, and the same customer is handed over to a different department, and he or she has to repeat that again. Think about yourself when you are calling up the telecom company, and you are, shifted from one department to another. You get disconnected. You ring back again, and you need to talk to the billing department, but you get into a department which they says they do not have any idea. But the thing is, to you, ultimately, it is that brand, it is that company which you have called up. You don't give a damn about whether that is the department which is solving or not. The main thing is nobody knows how to actually proceed with the escalation. But that person might be technically very sound in solving the problem, but they need to understand the limitation. So the main thing is, we have found during this work tenure that there is a huge gap in between what is taught in the institutions and how it is implemented in the real life. It is taught that you need to do this steps to solve this kind of problem, but this person was never aware of how to handle or how to analyze the customer's words, the pauses, and the kind of annotations the customer using. So, see, many organizations, I was lucky enough when I was working with HP to get trained in those kind of aspects. So I know there is so many dimensions to look into a customer problem. It's not always, you need to understand, while we were trained, the trainer said, you need to understand only 30% of the time you will be able to solve the problem technically. The 70% of the time, it's all about man management. It's all about how you manage the customer, how you manage the temperament, how you manage his or her willingness to work with you. That's all. If you take care of that 70%, that 20% or 30% gets solved absolutely, because there are technical situations which cannot be solved on that call itself. So how do you buy the time from the customer, from an irate customer who is already abusing you, who is already threatening you to leave your service or leave your organization? How do you buy a time from that particular customer? You do not know. Now if you ask that customer to perform a couple of steps and to solve the problem, he or she does not give a damn about it. The main thing is they are completely irate, they feel hopeless, they feel their problem is not being heard of, they feel that this technician is trying to just shrug me off from his shoulder to another shoulder, and it will be obviously like going on and on. Nobody wants to do that. Would you like to be shifted from one department to another while your problem still persists? Ultimately, what you will do for the telecom, we have seen the porting facility came because of this. People were frustrated with one telecom company, but they didn't want to change their number. They didn't want to get a new number because that is sometimes not possible. Like for me, my number has not been changed past 20 years. It has remained the same. Okay, ever since I came back from Bangalore, it is the same. But the thing is, when this porting facility came, every telecom company faced a lot of problem because the customers were porting their number to a different service provider, keeping their number safe, and in a hope that their problem would be solved. Many a times it does not get solved, but even then they feel some bit of relief, like, okay, I have dealt enough with those guys, I don't want to talk to them. Okay, my number is same. If I have to bear this problem, I'm not going to bear this problem with those guys because they do not listen to me. Many a times this appears as a very, very irrelevant question. This appears as a very relevant complaint. So what is the difference? Like for management students, I would say, or the technical students, while you are in the institutions, see, what you are learning, what you are reading through is a bunch of books. Now the real world is not a bunch of books. You cannot but solve all the problem by reading what you have read in the books. Like for me, I had economics as one of my major paper. Like, okay, in economics we were taught, and even today we are taught about the man-land ratio. Now, man-land ratio was a kind of concept which was applicable when cultivation used to be the major occupation of the majority of the population. Man-land ratio was applicable when the global scenario or the political scenario was different. Now, when we are having a China and India standoff and a face-off on the borders, fighting over an inch of land, where does man-land ratio apply? Now, if you try to solve the problem with a man-land ratio theory, utterly it will be a disaster. It will be a disaster because we are not then considering the global scenarios, the global aspects, the international laws, the kind of unity we have, the kind of other countries support we have. It is never possible to solve a real life problem with only what you have read in the books. So for the management students or for the technical students, see, reading is your curriculum. You have to complete the course. You have to, because for the certification, that is your syllabus. But even unfortunately, due to the pressure or the volume of the syllabus or whatsoever, I have found students doing suggestion based studies. Now, when you are doing a suggestion based studies, like you go for an examination reading only 12 questions or 20 questions or 10 questions. Now, the 10 questions cannot be economics. The 10 question or 12 question, even I have seen it during my graduation period, because of so many vast syllabus, so many subjects. I mean, all the students were eager was, the best teacher or the best tuition that you could have is the teacher who gave you the best suggestion before examination. Like, okay, you need to read this 10 question, and out of which you need to write this 6 question, which will be common. Now, this was such a great, this was and is such a trend that even today we hear about, I got the questions common. Now, when you have studied economics, or when you have studied international business law, or when you have studied accounts, or when you have studied, let's say, any other subject, how does it matter whether you find that question common or not? I mean, this is a very ridiculous thing. Like, I didn't get the question common. Many a times, many a years, we have found that there has been disputes, students clashes, and so on, just because they said, the question didn't come common. Like, what do you expect? What do you expect? The board to give you the questions and print it in a newspaper and give it to you so that you just can go to the examination hall and vomit the answers which you have mugged up, prior to your exam? It is never possible. If you believe that reading 12 questions and answering 6 questions can make you an economist, well, forget about that. Honestly, forget about that. It does not work. I mean, I'll tell you what kind of disaster happened. I was in my part 1, okay, and it so happened that the students had this tendency that whichever year you are appearing for, like, let's say I was appearing for my part 1 examinations of graduation in 1997. Okay, so the trend is the students will study alternate year question papers. Like, I am appearing for 97, so I will read suggestions or questions from 1995, 93, 91 and 89 and something like that. I mean, forget about that 89 thing. It will be 91. I mean, that is also forgotten. So majority of the student, what they did was, since they were appearing for 1997 examination, all that did they study is the question papers of 1993 and 1995, expecting the questions to be common from all those 2 years. What happened was, that particular year, I can guarantee you, it was a chaos among the examination hall. The board, the Calcutta University board, they repeated 1996 questions only. So all the questions that came in 1996 were repeated with just the facts and figures changed. The names and the numbers changed. But the questions were exact ditto of 1996. And none of the questions, the students were able to actually answer with a very clear mind as to, okay, I know the answer of this, I know how to answer this. But luckily for me, it was, it's not that everybody flunked. I mean, they answered, but the kind of chaos which happened in the examination hall itself proved that students expected the question paper of 93 and 95 to be combined and questions to be given, and then they could actually answer it. So there was a lot of confusion, chaos among the examination hall. A lot of students felt frustrated, and a lot of students even today also, my old friend says, we could have scored much better if we had the questions common. Now this is ridiculous. How can you have the question paper common? It is as good as leaking out the whole question paper to you and saying, okay, these are the questions which are going to come and you need to answer it. It does not happen. You cannot learn a subject by reading the suggestions. That's one first thing. Second is, when you are a management professional or a technical professional or a student, management student or a technical student, you need to understand, as a management student, I can tell you, you need to be aware of what's happening in the global scenario, what's happening in the international trade, what's happening in the gold market, because this is the real market where business is happening. And you are reading couple of bunch of books in a management school and you expect to go into the market and solve that kind of problem or be productive. It is never possible. It is never possible. I can guarantee you on that. It is absolutely never possible. So along with the curriculum, along with your syllabus, what you need to do is you need to read more about the business legends who are in the Indian scenario or the international market, about the international laws, about the environment policies which are being imposed, about the kind of government policies which are being imposed. And you need to be updated. That's what I always say. You need to be updated about what's happening all around you, because that's the real world. And you studying the theory and keeping yourself abreast with the reality in the business world will prepare you for the best solution to work on. When you join the organization, you will be contributive, you will be able to understand the problem much better and be contributive, and that will ensure your growth. Second thing is, I always tell to these institutions whenever I visit for a seminar or a workshop, like these management institutions, just as I said to the students, it is true that you have a curriculum, it is true that you have a syllabus, it is true that you are framing the syllabus to keep the students most updated. But along with that, what I always suggest is, you need to keep industrialists, you need to keep real life business houses into your board also, so that they can tell you what kind of problem is happening in their organization or in their business world, or in terms of any expansion that they are working on. So those are the real problems. Those are the real problems which is happening. And when you, as an institution head, you include those industrialists, their problems, the key responsible areas or the key functional areas of a business, what will happen is the students get an exposure to the real market. It is true that they have to study their curriculum. It is true that they will keep themselves abreast or updated, reading from YouTube or internet or the newspaper or the books and every other thing. But the thing is, reading and reading and reading and not exposing to the real operation is not going to help also. So when an organization is tied up with an institution and they share their problems, which is in terms shared with the students, and when the faculties and the students starts like, okay, see, the other day we read about this theory, and you guys know that we are tied up with so and so organization, and this organization is facing this kind of problem with the management on their floor. So let's try to analyze what is the problem and how it can be solved through what we read and learned the other day in the class. You see, the thing is so very interactive that students also feel very involved. The students feels that it is real life. Just think about it. I mean, if the doctors or the neuro doctors, if they were made to practice surgery on a plastic doll throughout their entire medical course, do you really believe they wouldn't have that confidence to go and operate on a live person? That is the reason in the medical colleges they do the autopsy, they do the kind of operations on dead bodies, on disclaimed bodies, and that's how they understand. Because seeing the real brain and seeing the brain in YouTube is not the same. Doing the surgery on a human body as to how the scalpel or the knife would cut on the surface of the skin or the flesh is not the same when you do it on a plastic doll. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's exactly what is happening in the management school and in the technical school. I'm very sorry to say. I'm very, very sorry to say, because I have seen people lacking that real life scenario, real life feel, and they cannot gel in. When facing this real problem, they start recollecting from the books. Okay, I read this and this and this, and in that these steps were asked to do, and that would solve the problem. But none of those problems that is arriving in front of me now can be solved with those kind of steps, because those steps are not applicable. How do you understand? How do you understand the real scenario? Is, see, the institutions need to involve the industrialists, the organizations. I always hear about campusing and this company coming to our campus. They are taking this best of the best students and so on. See, campusing is not about picking up the best student from a management school or a technical school. It's not about, parents are paying a huge amount of donation to get this, children in a B school or a technical school, where they have a tie-up with a big, big organization who does the campusing. Now, what is that going to do? How do you ensure that your son or your daughter is going to be that best, cream student who this organization would come and pick up and offer the best of the best package? Even if they are offered, like, would they be able to deliver the same way which the organization is expecting? It is going to be difficult. So the thing is, along with the campusing, these organizations need to be a part of the curriculum too, wherein they share real problems from their organizations and tell, okay, see, these are the problems which is arriving or happening in my organization. I want your students, or I want your faculty and students both together to work on this solution as a consultant, and the problem solving has to be done. It is not that they just try it, and the students who are able to work on this gets included in our next project with a kind of management trainee kind of thing. Management trainee, this is another farce. Like, I have seen MBAs and others, they go to, as trainees, they go to another organization, and then there is they meet the HR and they say, oh, you're the trainee, okay, all right, you meet this guy, so on, so, and when they meet that person, they give a huge file, they give a huge amount of data, and they give a very structured project which the students do the project, submit it, and gets the marks. The main thing is, the problem is, these companies do not have that kind of time to spare for the trainees to do that real handholding, to do that real budding, to really show the real problem. So this project, which might be handed over to me in, let's say, 2000, the same project gets handed over to the student in 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, and in this whole gap, the whole global scenario has changed, the whole political scenario has changed, whole economics has changed, and the students are getting the best marks because it is the same project that they are doing. And many a times, they just report and they just collect the data, because the organizations also believes that, see, this is just an eyewash thing and nothing is going to happen. We are never going to accept this or adapt this or absorb these trainees. So, since we are tied up with these organizations, we will give them a project, let them work on it, let them score, and let them move on. Let's not spend our time, let's not spoil our time. Now, that is what is creating the whole problem. The students do not have a hands-on as to the real problem which is happening. They are never handed over a project which is the problem which is happening at the present. Not even in the 6 months which appear. It may be 6 years old project is handed over to them just as a management trainee, and they work on that. They provide the project. They get it reviewed by their faculty. The faculty gives the score. And what is happening? These B schools are literally, pushing, incomplete students in the jobs market, and without being trained completely, without armed with the real life scenarios, without having the real in-depth understanding of the operation. So what is happening is when they go out, and they find the whole scenario changed. They find nothing is matching with their curriculum, nothing is happening with their notes and the project, or the kind of management project that they submitted, and they are completely at loss of what to do. So what is happening is, under such circumstances, when they join such an organization, they are bound to do more mistakes. They are bound to feel dejected. They are bound to, feel. And the worst part is, the students many a time does not understand this also. Coming from a big school, they believe, oh, I have the degree from that institution, and it matters, and I am an MBA. Doesn't matters. Your degree, let me tell you very, very frankly, I'm not trying to break your heart or make you feel demotivated. The thing is, your degree is just a piece of paper without any practical knowledge attached to it. It does not stand in the real market. Your degree might be, you are a first class, first holder in the whole university or in the whole institutions, but you might not even have the idea of that lower division clerk who is working in an organization past 20 years or 30 years or 40 years. Your management cannot, or your management training cannot match that experience of that lower division clerk also, who has been working past 30 years in this organization. So guys, I'll tell you one thing. See, it's a 360-degree view. The organization has to really tie up with institutions to find out the next best consultants. It's an investment on the company's part also, so that they can get the best consultants of the institutions. On the institutional part, it is but very important to include real organizations, not dummy organizations, in terms like involving them with their real problem, getting their students working on the problem, solving them, and coming up with a solution. And on the third part is the students part. You need to be, it's as I always say, it's a 60-40 ratio. 60% you have to understand in the real life. 40% you can, out of 40%, 20% is your education, 20% is your practicality, and the rest 60% is your observing skills about what is going on around you. So guys, if you really want to excel in your life, if you really want to grow in a career, with the COVID-19 situation, none of your degrees will matter. What will matter is what you deliver on the table. The management will only consider your deliverables, and one who can deliver in the real life gets the best pay, gets to stay with the organization, gets to grow with the organization. So guys, with that note, today I wind up today's morning vibe session with career counseling online. Wishing all the best, and it's a new week, so work with focus, work with clarity, and as I always mention, learn, contribute, and evolve. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining me. Thanks, Pallav, for joining me, and thanks for motivating and encouraging our effort. It's always great to have great viewers as you. Thanks a lot, guys. Stay home, stay safe.